Okay, so get this picture in your head. It's 1973, and The Exorcist is like the biggest thing in theaters, and it's not just the scares.
Yeah.
It's like people are walking out genuinely like freaked out, like, oh my God, am I possessed?
Right.
Like there's stories of people fainting in the movie.
Wow.
I mean,
Wild.
that's powerful stuff.
That power.
It really is. Yeah, he kind of speaks to some of those like primal fears we have,
Totally.
like losing control.
Yeah.
That fear of the unknown.
Like something else is in you controlling you.
Exactly. I mean, it's a fear that's been with humanity for centuries, really.
Yeah, and it's not like Hollywood invented this whole exorcism thing. Like, remember that article from the Washington Post?
Yeah.
Back in 1949 about that kid?
From Mount Rainier?
Yeah. Yeah, the one who went through all those exorcism rituals.
I mean, that's what inspired The Exorcist.
That's where it all started.
The author William Peter Blatty.
Oh, wow.
He was like captivated by that story.
Right. And when his book, and then the movie came out, it just like blew up, you know?
Yeah.
It was like they opened up this Pandora's box of
Yeah.
fear and like fascination with this whole demonic possession thing.
So are you saying like after that, everybody and their mother thought they needed an exorcism?
Well, I mean, there's definitely a surge in people reaching out to priests. But it's important to understand, like, the Catholic Church, they have a very specific take on this whole thing. So they distinguish between...
like different levels of demonic stuff?
Kinda, yeah. So there's demonic affliction,
Okay.
which is more like torment or influence, you know?
Okay.
And then there's, like, full-blown possession.
Oh, so like the takeover.
Exactly, like an entity taking control.
So that's like next level.
Yeah, and the church, they emphasize that true possession is actually really rare.
So you're saying like just because somebody is struggling,
Right.
maybe they're having negative thoughts.
Exactly. Doesn't mean they're possessed.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does a real exorcism even look like then?
Well, the actual Catholic rite, it's mostly about prayer
Oh, really?
and invocation. Not so much like the crazy Hollywood stuff.
So it's not like spinning heads and...
Not quite.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild to think that The Exorcist came out.
Yeah.
Like right when the Catholic Church was going through all these changes with Vatican II.
It's true. Vatican II is a big deal. I mean, it was all about modernizing,
Right.
engaging with the world.
Right.
But for some traditional Catholics, you know, there was a lot of anxiety around that.
I can imagine.
They saw these changes, like the decline of the Latin Mass and stuff,
Yeah.
as weakening the church's defenses.
Against the devil.
Yeah, like evil in general.
So it's like they're thinking the modern world is opening the door for demonic influence.
You could definitely interpret it that way.
Wow.
I mean, it reflects this fear of change, right?
Okay.
And like yearning for a simpler time, I think.
But this whole exorcism thing, it wasn't just a Catholic thing, was it?
No, not at all.
Like I've heard of Protestant deliverance ministries.
Absolutely. They were gaining a lot of traction around that time, too.
Interesting.
Yeah, and you start to see this kind of competition emerge
Between
different branches of Christianity, you know,
okay.
each one claiming to have the real deal.
Like the true path to get rid of the demons.
Yeah, basically.
Huh. So is it kind of like, I don't know, like yoga versus Pilates?
That's a good analogy.
Right. Like different approaches, but ultimately the same goal.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, this competition,
Yeah.
it led to some interesting attempts
To do what?
to differentiate, you know,
Yeah.
like set themselves apart. The Protestant exorcism from the Catholic rite.
To be like, no, ours is better, basically.
Right, exactly.
Oh.
It gets even more interesting, though.
How so?
Well, you start to see these renegade priests popping up.
Renegade priests? What does that even mean?
Like priests who are doing their own thing.
Performing exorcisms
Uh-huh.
independently,
Okay.
often like under the radar, you know?
So like not officially sanctioned by the church?
Exactly, because a lot of times the church wasn't really on board with it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
Because it shows you this tension
between
like individual belief and institutional authority.
So when people feel like their needs aren't being met by like the system, they'll look for another way.
Yeah, they find other solutions.
Even if it means going against the grain.
Exactly. It really speaks to the power of belief, you know?
Yeah.
And the lengths people will go to
to
find healing and peace of mind.
So if the church isn't giving them what they need, they'll find it somewhere else.
Precisely.
Even if they have to go underground.
Right.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is. It really is.
It really makes you think.
Yeah.
About the whole nature of belief and authority and all of that.
It's all connected.
It is, yeah. And that's just scratching the surface.
of this whole exorcism thing.
We've got a lot more to unpack here.
We do. So stick with us, everybody, as we keep diving deep into this world of exorcism.
It's going to be a wild ride.
It is. We'll be right back after a quick break.
So all this exorcism stuff going on.
Yeah.
The church definitely noticed.
Okay.
And in 1990, they formed this thing.
What thing?
The International Association of Exorcists.
Wow. So like official exorcist headquarters?
Kinda, yeah. Like they were trying to bring it all back under their control.
So less renegade priests, more official exorcists?
That's the idea, yeah. Like they wanted to standardize it,
Make sure it's all on the up and up.
Exactly. Responsible within the guidelines of the church.
Okay. But it wasn't just the church, fueling this fascination.
Right.
Like all this stuff in the media.
Our books, movies, all of it.
Like that book, Hostage to the Devil?
Oh, yeah, Malachi Martin.
Right. That was huge. Like everybody was reading that.
1976. That book was everywhere. It's an interesting one, for sure.
How so?
Well, it claimed to be real-life exorcism stories, but some of their methods were a little iffy.
Like what?
Well, they kept saying they couldn't name their subjects.
To protect their privacy or something.
Right. But that also makes it impossible to, fact-check anything.
Oh, so you're saying it might have been made up?
I'm not saying that, but it definitely raises some questions.
Yeah, I can see that.
And, the stories themselves,
Yeah.
they were pretty graphic, pretty over the top.
So, like, sensationalized.
Yeah, it's hard to know where the truth ends and the fiction begins.
Right, right. And didn't they talk about, like, a transgender woman?
Oh, Rita, yeah. That was one of the most talked about stories.
And wasn't she, like, the main case in the book?
One of the main ones, for sure.
It's kind of disturbing, though.
Yeah, for sure. It really plays into those social anxieties of the time.
Like about gender and stuff.
It's like people were projecting their fears.
Onto the devil.
Well, onto this idea of demonic influence, yeah.
It makes you wonder if exorcism was sometimes used to explain things people didn't understand.
Or even control them, yeah.
Like if someone was acting outside the norm.
Right. Anything that made people uncomfortable.
And that gets labeled as demonic.
Exactly.
Wow. It's also interesting how all this exorcism stuff happened at the same time as like MPD and recovered memories.
It's true. You had multiple personality disorder and all these recovered memory therapies.
And this was all in the 70s and 80s,
Yeah,
right?
those decades were why.
They were. But I don't get it. Like, those seem so different.
On the surface.
From exorcism.
But think about it.
Okay.
They were all trying to explain
What?
like mental and emotional suffering.
Oh, okay.
People were hurting and they wanted answers.
So back then, we didn't really understand mental health as well.
Not like we do now.
So people were looking for any explanation.
Right, and these frameworks.
Like exorcism and MPD.
Exactly.
They provided a way to make sense of it.
To find meaning in the suffering.
I guess if you're desperate enough.
Yeah, you'll grasp at anything that offers hope.
And these things, they promise to cure.
Right. That's the powerful thing.
Like if you get rid of the demon.
Or uncover the repressed memory.
Then you'll be healed.
Right, it's this very black and white thinking.
Well, it was appealing at the time.
Oh, absolutely. People were hungry for solutions.
So it really makes you think, like, if someone finds peace through an exorcism.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like in their head.
Right.
Like a placebo.
Uh-huh.
Is it really all that bad?
I mean, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer.
I guess it depends on the person.
Yeah, individual beliefs and experiences.
But then there's also that whole exploitation thing. Like, what if someone is taking advantage of these people?
That's the danger, right?
I mean, on the one hand,
Yeah.
if someone feels like they're getting help and nobody's getting hurt,
right,
then who am I to judge?
I understand that perspective.
But then you have those people who are preying on the vulnerable.
Yeah, using fear to manipulate people.
And that's just wrong.
Absolutely. That's where it gets really ethically messy.
So it's like walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
Trying to respect people's beliefs, but also protect them from harm.
It's a tough balance.
It is. So what do we do?
Well, I think education is key. Critical thinking, too.
So people can make their own informed decisions?
Exactly.
And know the risks.
Right. It's all about empowering people.
This whole exorcism thing has been fascinating, though.
It really has.
It's crazy how something so old is still relevant today.
It taps into something deep,
It's like our deepest fears and anxieties.
It's about belief and trying to make sense of the unknown.
Even if those explanations aren't perfect.
Even if they're harmful sometimes.
So what's the big takeaway here?
Well, exorcism is like a lot of belief systems.
Yeah.
It's complex. It's not black and white.
There are good and bad sides to it.
Exactly. It can be a source of comfort or a tool for control.
So we have to be careful.
Yeah, approach it with a critical eye.
Don't just believe everything you hear.
Right, and find trusted sources of information.
This deep dive has really been eye-opening.
I agree.
It's a topic that just keeps you thinking.
Yeah, there's always more to explore.
So if you're interested in learning more,
please do your own research.
Check out different perspectives.
And maybe you have your own experiences.
Or thoughts you want to share.
We'd love to hear them.
So subscribe to The Deep Dive.
Yeah, join the conversation.
Leave a comment. Let's keep this discussion going.
Because the more we understand these things,
the better equipped we are to deal with them.
Keep questioning, keep exploring.
And keep diving deep.
See you next time.